COVID-19, it's going to be really challenging for units to plan ahead and really know how much popcorn to order. And I assume that we're going to get some guidance from council on that as we get closer to that date of placing orders. As we've seen in the sessions this morning, we have a decreased inventory selection or product selection, which adds a whole lot of additional uncertainty into what we decide that we're going to handle and carry as units. Again, hopefully we're going to get some direction on from Trails End and hopefully from the council on what to do. One of the more important things about inventory management is minimizing risk. When units order popcorn and we end up with more popcorn than we can sell, we as units have the luxury of being able to give that popcorn back to the council. However, if at the end of the sale, council can't unload it, they get stuck with it. So you guys have seen in many years, we've had popcorn for sale in the Scout store at heavily reduced prices. Sometimes they can get rid of it, sometimes they can't. So it's important to not bite off more than you can chew. But then, we're also in this situation where we want to take as much product as we think we can sell so we can maximize our commissions. So it's a real balancing act on determining your order size and determining what you think you can do. I think this year we're probably going to see more of a focus on the online sales, on the prepaid type sales on the app, and probably less of an emphasis on wagon sales. That hasn't been told to me, but from a risk mitigation standpoint, I think that those are the channels that we probably need to be focusing on heavier as far as sales go. Historically, what we've done in the past is, scouts or units will get 70 to 80% of their previous year's sales. They can order that much product for show and sell. I think, again, this number is probably going to be lower this year with the product change. We've seen that the Unbelievable Butter microwave is not going to be available. It was a huge seller. So instead of looking at the dollar amount that you're going to be ordering, I think you need to take a closer look at the products that you think you can sell versus saying, well, we sold 20,000 last year. We want to order 15,000 worth of product because we really don't know where things are going to go at this point. We don't know what the market is going to respond or how they're going to respond if people are willing to sell or buy. So exercise a little caution would be my suggestion there. How many first-time popcorn shares do we have in the group here? You guys can throw in the chat or hit the raise my hand button. Just curious how many first-timers that we have. Okay, so 3 or 4. One of the, so you guys are coming into this, first timers, never seeing any of the systems that we've had or used before. So you're both at an advantage and a disadvantage because you're going to come into the popcorn system and you'll have no, predetermined notions about how things are to run. So you kind of get to learn it for the first time and use it, and I think it'll go smoothly for you. For some of us, last year was the first year we used this back end, and it was a shift from what we were used to before. It was definitely a change. We had a fair amount of confusion as to what we needed to do, what we had to do, and so there were certainly some areas that I think our unit could have done better, and a lot of that stemmed from communication on the front end with your families and scouts. Because again, you've got scouts that have been doing this for years and years and years, and then we come into this point where we have some change, and some people adapted to it better than others. One area, as far as managing your your scouts orders, and I may be getting off inventory management a little bit here, but I think it still applies, is understanding who has what product. Okay, we have all of this show and sell product that we've purchased, and then we're going to issue it to scouts. One thing that I would stress is that you don't want to have, you may not want to be 100% dependent on that app to tell you who has what product. You know, the app has various failure modes, mostly human failure modes. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to do things wrong. It's just how it works. And as a popcorn share, it's your job to make sure that you know where every single bag of popcorn is. We have, our unit has historically run popcorn sales where at the end of the sale, you know, we'll have fewer than 2 or 3 bags where we didn't know where they went. It is possible to have near 100% control of your inventory and almost no loss, but it takes a little bit of discipline. One thing that our unit has used, I'm going to show a couple things on my screen here, and really this is for the newbies. Are you guys able to see my spreadsheet?
Yes.
Okay. So, you know, one thing let me get the right one up here. One thing we've used every year is a checkout sheet. Okay. So it can be a very simple form, but it gives you an opportunity to document exactly what you've given to the scouts. Make sure that they understand the value of each of those items. So we show the number of containers you've checked out. When it's time to bring it back, you know, we can mark what was returned, calculate how much was sold. You have the prices listed on this sheet for them, and then they know how much they need to give back to you. Ideally, all of the product is sold, but sometimes, you know, scouts don't sell everything; they bring some back. But one thing I would suggest to you as a popcorn share is this checkout sheet also allows you the opportunity to issue a promissory note. So put some language on there, craft it however you would like it to be crafted, but make sure that the parents understand the rules of engagement here and that it's all got to be accounted for. If it's in their possession, they own it, and they owe you the value for it when it comes back. If the boxes got wet, got smoke around, you know, torn, ripped, marked on, they can't bring it back, can't return it. It's unsellable product. And so put these things on this checkout sheet, make them sign it. And so just the act of making somebody sign a piece of paper really can go a long way in making them aware, making them, I guess, getting their buy-in for treating the product well and handling it properly. On this particular sheet, you know, we had just a section here. We duplicate the information. We cut the bottom off and send it with the popcorn, and then the pack retains the top part. We have had a couple situations where we had to, we had product that was taken and we never got the money for it from the person that was selling popcorn, and ended up having to get, unfortunately, the local law enforcement involved. And we never actually had to press any charges, but the local law enforcement was willing to go to them and have a chat with them. And eventually we did get the money back. But having this thing signed, if you ever did have to send somebody to collections, or however your organization would manage it, having that signed form is about the only thing that you're going to be able to have that's going to help you have two legs to stand on when it comes to trying to recover. Another form that we have is a sign-out sheet for a storefront. Storefronts were typically always a real challenge for inventory management, simply because you had multiple kits or multiple liters, and there were a lot of exchanges. recommend that when you do a storefront and you have that first kit, you have the responsible leader that's taking that kit. They sign it out. If they don't sell that full kit, they bring it back, and you do the same kind of thing as you do with the scout kit. Mark down what was sold, what's due, and you're collecting that money at that time. One thing I don't suggest is that you let somebody hang on to storefront product or money any longer than you absolutely have to. Get it back, get it returned into inventory and counted, and get the money. So the challenge on storefronts comes when you have somebody needing product, and so the storefront is out of whatever unbelievable butter, and somebody says, well, I have some in my car for my kit, I'll just bring that to the storefront. I would discourage people bringing their own popcorn to a storefront. Would run storefronts off of dedicated storefront kits because it makes inventory management much more manageable. If people are transferring things back and forth, it just gets messy. So all of this is outside of the app. Now, the app does have a provision for you to issue inventory to a scout, issue inventory to a storefront, and that's great. But for purposes of getting signatures and really tracking who had what, there's nothing better than paper, in my opinion. If you want to do the paper and then log it in the app, that's a good thing you can do. And I would be interested to hear if other units that are on the meeting here have had really, really great experiences, only going digital. But in my opinion, it's always best to maintain some degree of a fallback that you can use to at least step back and say, where are we? What actually got issued, and then you can compare that to the app. In the end, the app needs to have the information, but I think there's no issue running two sets of books. We did another promissory note at the end of the sale when we had the final orders going out. So this kind of served as both a pick list and a promissory note. And really that promissory note, you kind of have to do it every time you give somebody product, because on the note, you're showing how much product you gave them. So that's why we did another one for take order. And it also gives you kind of an opportunity here to, you build this out in the spreadsheet. It gives you an opportunity to say, what is the total amount that you've sold? How much have you paid already, and what's the remaining balance due? So it kind of serves as a touch point to make sure everybody is on the same page from an ordering standpoint. I think at this point we can probably take some questions. I'm sure we have a lot. We had one question early on. Dan was wondering, how do we even order popcorn? That's a good question. That's obviously the first step. So in years past, we had paper forms, and on those paper forms, we would put in our order. With the app, it's a lot easier. I'm a big fan of the way the app works for ordering your initial and reorders of popcorn. You just log in and you place your order. Council will approve it, and then the product will be available for pickup at the pickup day. I'm just looking at the questions now after I got my screen share down. I can share that spreadsheet. Abby, do you know if there's a way to post files? Yes, looks like there is a way to post files.
There's one question on when to submit your show and sell order. And I believe that date is August 26th. And we'll talk more about that at the council popcorn celebration section and the general Q&A. Of course, I wrote it down and then left my notebook in my office, but we tried to get that pushed back, and Trails End just could not do it later in September and get us the product when we needed it. So that last week in August will be when show and sell is due. We are going to limit, in the past, we've let units order like 75% of what they ordered the previous year or what they sold the previous year for show and sell. We are not going to do that this year. We're going to cut it back some because we're unsure about returns. We're worried about how many people touch the popcorn with the virus going around. So that's definitely something to think about when you're setting up storefronts and show and sells. I also see somebody asked, is the council allowing storefront booths? Yes. It will be all about the comfort level of the unit and the families within that unit. We have gotten permission from Schnucks stores at the council level to sell, or at the national level to sell. We will be reaching out next week to all the managers of Schnucks stores to see if the individual stores will let us come in and check on them. So there are some companies out there who are letting scouts sell in front of their stores, and the council is allowing it. But we do want you to wear a mask. We do want you to have hand sanitizer with you. So take all the precautions that you can.
Abby, you mentioned concern about returns. That's obviously a concern. If the popcorn's being handled by a lot of people, I could understand why there might be some people that are worried about that. So what is the guidance from council? Are we going to have no returns, or we just want to limit the returns? Has there been anything specific discussed?
I do not have that information. That would definitely be a question that John Harding could answer a little later on in the day. Okay.
Because that certainly will have an impact on the level of risk the units are willing to take and how much product to order. It's a mess. It's a very unfortunate year. We've got two different things going on. We've got COVID, which everybody's concerned about that, and then as a result, we've got this large product mix change. There's so much uncertainty this year. So I know that units will certainly be looking for some pretty specific guidance on how you guys think they should proceed. The one thing that I had some notes, and I didn't cover this, for the new popcorn chairs, one thing that you need to make sure you do is determine who has access to your inventory. Who is able to check things in, check things out. Where's this product going to be stored? I've heard of some units renting storage units and then controlling access to that storage unit. A lot of people just put it in their homes. But you need to make sure that whoever has access to that popcorn is somebody that you trust to have a discipline to log movements of that inventory. You want to make sure that you know who has what product at all times.
Looking back into the chat a little bit, someone asks, is everyone doing sales kits for wagon sales this year? If so, what's an example of what to include with the inventory?
So, I didn't find out about the product mix change until just this morning, actually. Historically, what we have done is a wagon kit that's about $300. Now, but again, historically, we had some pretty good history of what items are good sellers, and the caramel corn has always been a very heavy seller, and then the Unbelievable Butter microwave has been a very heavy seller. Unfortunately, that product's not available this year. Salted caramel's always been okay. It's one of the more pricier premium items. So you probably don't want to put as much of that in your kits. But if I had to offer my opinion, and that's all this is, I would go heavy on caramel corn, and then make sure you give the scouts some popping corn. White cheddar, we've always given them a couple bags, a bag or two of salted caramel. We don't typically do any cheese lovers in the show and sell kits, just because that's a real premium item and it's difficult to sell. Trying to think what else we've had. The newer products, this blazing hot popcorn, that represents a risk. It's a new product. We don't know how it's going to sell. The unbelievable butter as a pre-popped, I think, represents another risk. We don't know how it's going to sell. So include it, but don't base your sale around it, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Someone else asked, if our pack opts out of storefronts, can individuals sign up through the council? It depends. I know there are some stores in the Evansville area, like in the cities nearby, like Schnucks, Sam's Club, the West Side Rural King in Evansville. They like the council to set up their storefronts. So with that, we will have a sign-up system where scouts can go in and select a shift to work. But that's only for those few storefronts that the council controls.
So we've got a comment here from PAC 305. So it's one of the biggest challenges we had during the sale was scouts weren't putting sales into the app. And this is, going back to, how are we going to adopt this new technology and what is the best way to use it? Some people don't have the app. Some people don't have any desire to use a digital platform for popcorn sales. For young scouts, it can be somewhat difficult. And I think, generally we have busy parents that may not necessarily make loading things into that app a priority. There's nothing wrong with falling back on paper order forms and paper everything. For wagon sales, that's 100% okay. Communication is always key. If you have scouts that I always like to touch base, regularly throughout the sale, and ask people, if you're not moving product, let us know, let us get it back, so we can move it on to somebody else. And that gives you an opportunity to kind of do a reality check of where you are. So I think that really as a unit, you probably need to get a feel for how scouts are going to use that app, if they're going to use the app. And my suggestion would be to have scouts do one or the other, not a hybrid of the two, because that will end up getting very, very confusing when it comes to order time. You can have both types of scouts in your unit, ones that do paper, ones that do app, but don't have a scout do both, would be my suggestion. At least not for logging sales of physical product.
And if you do have a scout who needs to use that paper form, at the end, all those sales need to be logged in under that scout so that he or she can get the prizes that they've earned, because it's all going through the Trails End system this year.
Correct. And Jessica's made a comment here that jogged my memory as to what I did at the end of the sale. At the end of the sale, I had some scouts that had put some stuff in the app. Like I said, they did a hybrid mode. And so I had to sit down with them and say, okay, what's legit here? And so we determined, okay, really everything that was on the app that they put in was duplicated on their form. So we just blew away all the sales they had in the app. And then in one of the other sessions, the gentleman showed how he just did one lump order for that scout, one sale for all that product. And that is how you have to get the sales in the system so that the kids can get their prizes if they haven't put it in the app themselves. But it's a little work for larger units, but it's also a way for you to keep control and know what is what. You certainly don't want to get in a situation where you're entering things off a paper form and they already have things in the app and you don't know if sales are duplicated or not, and then you're ordering product that you don't need.
Let's see. Katie asks, where can I find the Trails Insight? On the Trails Insight, what was sold last year? That is definitely a question we can ask the Trails In people. My access to that is a little different than what you guys see, so we can make sure to get that asked. I wrote it down on my notes. And do we know if Trails In will mail out order forms and prize info to the scouts this year? The council always does send out the order forms, and within the order form is the prize sheet. So that will be mailed out this year before the sale starts with any other council information you need to know. They talked about having, Doyle asked if there's an unpaid option in the app yet. And Jake did talk a little bit about this in our last training of the popcorn app that we just got out of. And he said that it isn't an option yet, but there are some workarounds. So you can select it as a cash order. So you don't have to collect the payment right then, and then just make sure that if they haven't paid, you know who hasn't paid.
So one thing you could do in that case, so let's go back to why doing it as a cash order works. And the reason that works is because if you do a cash order, you can refund that at any point in time. So you can, if you do a cash order, you then go deliver, and maybe they want to pay with a credit card at that point in time. You can refund that and then redo it as a credit. The guidance that I think I would give is that when you're entering that order, you add a tag that says unpaid. Maybe you add that to the end of their name or something just to help you separate those from other orders and be able to go back and remember that person needs to be paid or get paid. Pay you.
Somebody said, since we're missing the price structure call, will that information be summarized later today? It may be brought up later, but also all these sessions are being recorded, and at the end of this coming week or early the following week, we will have all that posted on our website under Popcorn Resources.
I'm going to drop copies of those forms into the file box here. I'm going to need to strip out a little bit of information out of them first. So if you guys are willing to stick around for a few minutes while I get that done, I'll have those posted here in about 5 or 10 minutes.
See, Val asks, for storefront booth signups that the council has to do, would it be the same process as last year? And the answer is yes, we do plan on using up the same system that we used last year, where we email out what storefronts are open, and then you have a set amount of time to go in and pick which session or which shifts you want or can cover. We do ask that you only sign up for the ones that you know for sure you are going to be able to cover. Because when last minute things pop up and the storefront can't be covered, it's usually too late for us to find another scout to do it. Okay, and I did say the order form would be sent out before the sale starts. Usually we send that out so it arrives at the scout's home the week that the sale is going to start. So the sales always start on Saturday. So that week leading up to it is when we aim for those to be delivered to the scout's home. This helps with keeping people from selling too early. And the official start date for popcorn, the popcorn sale for the council, even though you can sell online right now, our council sale starts on September 26th.
For anybody grabbing these files, just want to make sure you understand that this is last year's information, or it could even be 2 years old. So make sure you're going through and updating the product mix and, more importantly, pricing that's shown on these.
Popcorn pickup will be September 22nd. So if you do order physical popcorn to sell, you will be able to pick that up at your designated location on September 22nd, which is a Tuesday. We are currently looking for a backup site for Lincoln Heritage. So if you're in Lincoln Heritage District and you know of a warehouse that might be able to help us out, please let us know. Because our current distribution location might not work. We have a few more minutes here. So if you have any other questions, please stick them down in the comment or in the chat box. And yes, the popcorn sale ends October 24th. All right, everybody, I hope this was an informative and helpful session for you. Feel free to stick around and ask questions if you have them, or hop off and take a break before our next sessions. The next session starts at 11:30, and there is unit planning and goal setting, or getting family buy-in. That's getting families involved and pumped to sell popcorn.